Hi, and welcome back to Blue Sky Bonsai. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about olives, and I'm going to be showing you one of my favourite trees in the world. I'm going to be looking at a pre-bonsai that I bought about 4 years ago and how it's getting on now. And finally, I'm going to be doing some work on my wild olive, Olea sylvestris, also known as Oleaster. Enjoy the video. So here's the famous olive tree. This is in the corner of my garden, and one of the things that makes it really special is that trunk. So let's have a closer look here. A bit difficult to estimate how old this tree actually is. Might be 300 years, judging by the size of the base. Could be older, I suppose. So this olive really has got some interesting features in the trunk. It's kind of got a triple trunk. Look at that. It's kind of weird. It kind of spreads down very nicely at the root base. A bit difficult to see. It's half sun, half shade. Absolutely love the way the trunk just kind of twists around as it comes down. It's almost as if there are 3 trees here and they fused early on. Yeah, I love this tree, and there should be some quite good options for doing an air layer, which I might do next year. I'm not going to take any of the really old, beautiful bark off. But what I will do is possibly take one of these branches here, one of the fatter branches that's going up into the middle of the tree, because like any fruiting tree, full size like this in the garden, you want it to be vase shaped, and what I called in another video the orchard style. So any branches that are going up vertically directly in the middle like that one could make a very nice future possibility. So I'm very seriously considering next year air layering this middle branch. Of course, when you do an air layering, it'll still be a few more years after that before you can consider it as a bonsai. Let's take a look up here. As you can see, it's growing olives. There's a very interesting thing. This olive tree grows olives pretty well every second year. So this year is an olive year. Last year it was bare. The year before it gave us an incredible harvest, absolutely loaded with olives. So it's 1 year on, 1 year off. The tree recovers between years. So it's very pretty when they give you olives. My wife actually harvests them and turns them into edible olives. This could also be used to create olive oil, although you'd need really quite a huge number of them to make a significant amount of olive oil. It's growing a sucker down there. Could turn that into a ground layer, but again it would take years before it gets fat enough to be useful. So I'll probably just chop that off, that sucker. What a magnificent tree it is. Yeah, it's going to need some tree surgery this year. A bit later in autumn, chop some of the longer branches and take out some of the middle branches. So let's talk a little bit about this pre-bonsai olive that I bought a few years ago. I'm going to pan the camera down a bit here. Now, As you can see, I did actually take it out its pre-bonsai pot and turned it into a bonsai. I'm not that happy with it for various reasons. The chops that you can see, they don't seem to heal over very well on an olive. It's okay because it will gradually make it look older, but it's very obvious at the minute. And the other thing I'm not happy about is that the trunk is just still too thin, too long and thin. It's got some taper, which is good. But you see, for example, the second branch here is really has no taper at all and just long and straight. So here are some photos of the development during 2018 and then 2019. This follows the pattern of 1 year olives, 1 year bare. And because last year it had olives and it gave quite a lot of them. So then this year, 2020, there have been no olives at all. So if you see the lower trunk there, you can see on one hand it's got some nice movement. You kind of see it's got a little bit of movement there. Just put this koala sitting up. But on another hand, I don't like the way it kind of goes up a bit and then sticks out. And I think that this top bit might have been grafted into a stronger root base before I bought it. So, you know, we're talking 5 years ago when it would have been a little whip. And I don't see why they would have done that, because olive is, you know, is a pretty strong, this should have good strong roots anyway. Don't know if it's apparent that I'm just not very happy with this bonsai. So yeah, like I said, what I'm going to do is bung it into a garden, a grow pot, much bigger than this. We'll just see how it turns out over the next 2 years. Okie dokie, so next, let's just take this away, put it back on the patio. The koala bear is very important. Okay, so next, I'm going to work on my Oleaster, which I repotted earlier this year in this video, and it's still looking very good. Very happy with this. So before I do any work, let's do a very quick twirl, and you can see that it's a pretty interesting tree. I've been considering it an informal upright. It's got a nice trunk that really we want to be able to see, and it's got movement even higher up. So we can thin out these branches and turn it into a very nice informal upright. And these Oleaster, the wild olive, have a brilliant feature of the tiny leaves. So they're kind of like the growth pattern of a normal olive, but with these leaves, it really looks like a miniature real tree. So I think I should take advantage of the beautiful trunk, the movement in the trunk, keep that showing, and perhaps thin out these branches, thin out the crown, and then later in winter I'm also going to do a bit of work on the very top. So the trunk at the top is just a straight chop. Bought this a year ago. Quite normal for a kind of a commercial bonsai, so that the bonsai artist has to clean up the chop, and it'll take a few years to heal over. But I've got to work on that, turn it into basically a more natural looking top of a trunk. It should taper naturally into one of the upper branches, which would be the new leader. I really don't think long term it would suit a broom style. I think it's got a lovely bit of movement in the trunk. It's got a good thick trunk. What I'm going to need to do is sort out the top of the trunk, so that the trunk tapers nicely and kind of thins down to top branches. The problem is we've got so many branches at the top, I'm going to have to do some thinning there, and it pains me to do it. It's a beautiful tree that I'm going to have to take off a lot of the foliage. It's still going to get another probably 2 months of sun here in Madrid. It's mid-September and there's still a lot of sun. So if I do chop some of the branches, it's still got a good chance of growing more leaves again before winter. But the real thing is I need to tidy up the whole top. And yeah, eventually what's going to happen is this lovely round crown at the top is just going to be thinned down. It's going to look bare for a good few months, probably until late spring or right into next summer. But I think it needs to be done in order to get to the top. We need to thin out these branches so that later in winter I really can do a proper job of carving out that top and trying to turn it into a much better taper, a much better canopy. What I see here is probably about 5/6 of the way up the trunk. One of the branches, so the branch comes off the trunk and then bifurcates into one that goes vertically upwards and the other that goes outwards. And what I want to do is keep the one that goes outwards and chop the one that goes upwards, because that is obscuring the top of the trunk. And we've got that in quite a few places actually around this trunk. So each one I cut off, I'm going to just pop in a little bowl of water, and these will all grow roots, and next year we'll make great cuttings. We'll grow like anything for future bonsai, like I did in that video. So I've got my glass of water, not for drinking, but for putting any cuttings that are likely to be useful for next year's new wild olives. So let's make a start. Here's the branch just here that is really obscuring the top, and it's quite a big branch. So I'm going to cut off the vertical part of that and leave the horizontal branch. Need to really get down into there. Make sure I do it properly. And that will make a lovely new cutting and a lovely new bonsai in the future. Just chop these bits off. Okay, that's the first one. Now already we can see a lot better into the top of the trunk area, and that is going to be very important when I'm carving it a bit later in the year. If we can get the trunk to taper more in such a short distance, we can contribute to the appearance of age in this bonsai. And there are lots of tricks for doing that. One of them is to get a lot less foliage up top, and another is to carve down into a shape which makes it look more tapered. This branch here is coming up and then going right across the top of the bonsai, so that's not good. So once again we can see pretty well down into the top of the trunk, and you can see quite clearly where it would be a very good point to carve. So here there are 3 branches coming out of one point near the top. It's not at the top but near the top, but it will be the top when I carve away this piece here. I really do need to choose just 2 of those and chop one of them off. So we're only getting 2 branches coming out. One to keep as the new leader, one to keep as a more outward branch, and therefore get rid of the 3rd one that doesn't fit either of those. Yeah, I'm going to have a really good look at this and think. Hold that thought. So that brings us to the end of part 1 of this series of videos on olives. Thanks so much for watching. As always, if you did like it, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't subscribed to Blue Sky Bonsai, please go ahead and subscribe now so you can see part 2 and all my future upcoming videos. Bye for now.